Molly is a friend. Molly is a coworker. And a lot of times some of these things happen and it's just uncomfortable to see.
Okay, y'all, sit down, because what I'm about to tell you is absolutely wild. Stephen A. Smith went ahead and leaked a video of Molly Qerim that could destroy her remaining reputation. Now I know what you're thinking. Wait, didn't Molly already leave ESPN? Yes, baby, she did. But this video, this is different. This is the kind of mess that threatens to erase everything she built over the years. Chile, this footage was supposed to stay hidden, locked away in the vault, and now it's out there for the whole world to see. The damage? Irreversible. And the fact that Stephen A. is behind it? Oh baby, buckle up, because this story has layers of mess, betrayal, and straight-up hypocrisy. Let me take you back to September 15th, 2025. It's a regular Monday morning. Molly Qerim wakes up, gets ready, and heads to ESPN studios to host First Take like she's been doing for years. Everything seems normal. The cameras roll, the show flows, and Molly has no clue this will be her last time ever sitting in that seat. She wraps up the show and goes about her day. In her mind, she's coming back tomorrow. In her mind, she's got months left on her contract. But baby, everything was not fine. Behind the scenes, chaos was brewing. Within hours, her entire world was about to collapse. That Monday morning was the last moment of normalcy she'd ever have at ESPN. That same evening, Sports Business Journal drops a bombshell. Molly Qerim is leaving ESPN after failed contract negotiations. Her private business becomes public news, and it caught Molly completely off guard. The original plan was for Molly to stay until December. But when this news broke, her exit became immediate. No transition period, no goodbye. Just gone. ESPN's president Burke Magnus admitted the timing was unexpected and outside their control. Insiders started calling it an emergency exit. No farewell segment. No tribute video. Nothing. She just vanished.
This was an abrupt landing. This is an emergency exit. This is an emergency landing. This is one of those.
Chilly when I tell you this was messy. I mean, it was messy. Marcellus Wiley, a former ESPN host who knows how that network operates, spoke up and said what everyone was thinking. He straight up said this wasn't just about money. Something personal and way deeper was happening behind closed doors. Here's the question Marcellus posed. Why did Molly quit overnight after showing up to work like everything was normal? Think about it. She hosted First Take on Monday. By Monday night, she's done at ESPN. That's not how departures work. Something happened that forced the issue, and Marcellus wasn't afraid to say it.
To give you what a therapist told me. Therapist told me it's not just how things end, it's why are they ending that way?
Y'all, something else is going on here. This ain't just about a paycheck. September 16th, 2025. Viewers tune in expecting to see Molly, but instead they see Stephen A. Smith sitting there alone, looking visibly emotional. The confusion was real. People were asking, where's Molly? Stephen A. breaks the news, but keeps it vague, saying, it's none of our business, and we should respect her privacy.
Last night, she abruptly resigned as the host of the show. And to say that I'm quite sad about it is an understatement.
The raw emotion in Stephen A.'s voice was undeniable, but listen carefully to what he said next, because this is where things start getting really interesting.
Molly is a friend. Molly is a coworker. Molly is somebody that I have leaned on many occasions in the past, as she has done when it comes to me. We've been partners on the show for the last 10 years. And a lot of times, some of these things happen, and it's just uncomfortable to see.
That sounds respectful, right?
Details, quite frankly, are none of y'all business. But it's not as if I know all the details. It was a contract negotiation that was going on.
But then he starts talking about contract negotiations, timelines, and disagreements. Suddenly, this man who just said, it's none of our business, is making it everybody's business. People started clocking that Stephen A. wasn't being genuine. He was playing respectful on camera while throwing shade between the lines. The fact that he was doing this the very next day after Molly's departure? Chilly. The audacity. After Molly left ESPN, she put out a goodbye message. She thanked the crew, the producers, and her supporters. But you know whose name was nowhere to be found? Stephen A. Smith, baby. Molly worked alongside Stephen A. for 10 years. And she didn't mention him once. Not even a passing thank you to my co-hosts. In TV culture, that is loud. Shannon Sharpe thanked Skip Bayless when he left Undisputed despite their tension. But Molly, she chose silence.
Someone you work with for 10 years, you don't even mention them when you're gone. And you don't even give them that partner heads up on air. Like, hey, we did this thing together. This thing is over, right? So that lets you know the business was ugly behind the scenes.
Industry insiders said this wasn't an accident. This was deliberate. This was Molly's way of letting the world know that whatever happened between her and Stephen A., it was bad. That omission said, I'm not gonna act like we're good when we're not. Marcellus Wiley came back with another hot take that flipped the narrative. While everyone thought Molly had a breakdown, Marcellus said, nah, this was a power move. He argued Molly's exit was calculated. By leaving abruptly, she forced ESPN and Stephen A. to show the world what First Take looks like without her. She highlighted her value. For years, people acted like she was just the moderator. But when she left, suddenly Stephen A. looked lost. Suddenly the show felt different.
Why? Why did Molly want to go out in a blaze? Coming to work Monday and then I ain't coming to work no more and y'all figure it out. Stephen A. abruptly has to host a show for the whole week.
Marcellus said this wasn't quitting. This was a protest. Molly was saying, you want to undervalue me? Let me show you what this show looks like without me. And baby, that's powerful. That's standing up for yourself and demanding respect. Let's talk about money. Molly was making $500,000 a year to host First Take. In sports media, for someone hosting one of ESPN's biggest shows, that's embarrassingly low. Her peers were making millions. So what did Molly want? A pay raise that reflected her value and her own show, like Max Kellerman got. ESPN said no to both. They basically told her, you're worth $500K, take it or leave it. And while they were lowballing Molly, they were throwing millions at other people. The disrespect exposed a massive power imbalance. Here's what most people don't know. Stephen A. Smith is the executive producer of First Take. That means he has power over budget, hiring, firing, and contracts. When Molly was negotiating, she wasn't just dealing with ESPN executives. She was negotiating with her coworker who had direct control over her job.
He signs off on you. When he signs for you, you get what you want. But guess what? There's a flip to it as well. When he doesn't sign off on you, when he doesn't sign for you, you don't get what you want.
Think about how messed up that is. You're asking for a raise, and the person deciding is someone who sits next to you every day. Someone who might feel threatened by you getting your own show. That's the position Molly was in. When Stephen A. says it's my show, it's literally true. He controls it. That's toxic. If you think Molly's situation is unique, think again. This is a pattern. Carrie Champion left after tension with Stephen A. Max Kellerman, pushed out after their relationship soured. Shannon Sharp left First Take, and Stephen A. seemed to know about it before the public did. Every time someone works closely with Stephen A. on First Take, eventually, they're gone. At what point do we stop calling it coincidence? Stephen A. has influence, and people who don't fall in line end up out the door. While Molly was dealing with ESPN's lowball offers, Fox Sports offered her $2 million a year for 3 years plus bonuses. That's $6 million guaranteed. Compare that to $500K and it's not even close. But Molly gave ESPN a chance. She said, y'all want to match it? Want to show me you value me? And ESPN said no. They refused to match it. They pushed her out the door. That tells you everything about how ESPN viewed Molly, as expendable.
All make decisions that we deem to be in our best interest for whatever reason. And that story is for her to tell. Do I have an idea? Of course I do. Am I going to share it with you? No. Because again, that's her story to tell.
But instead of quietly supporting her, Stephen A. started making public comments, adding fuel to the fire. Instead of having his co-hosts back, he made things worse. Remember how Stephen A. said he wouldn't share private details? Well, days later on his podcast, he starts discussing contract negotiations in general terms. He's not saying Molly's name, but it's so obvious who he's talking about. He starts going off about how people overestimate what they bring to the table, how negotiations get messy when someone thinks they're worth more than they are. He was 100% talking about Molly.
Having said that, I want to move on to a broader subject in regards to this. And this part is not about Molly.
But then listen to what he said next.
But when you have negotiations and you're talking with people and you're going back and forth and you're hearing things that you may not want to hear or feeling things you may not want to feel, even though you're valued, even though people acknowledge those kind of things, we live in a world where we have to grow up. And again, I'm not talking about Molly.
He was painting her as delusional. Viewers caught on immediately. People were calling him fake, a hypocrite, a snake. Stephen A. showed his true colors. Now here's where it gets rich with irony. Stephen A. is lecturing about humility and knowing your place. But baby, let's talk about 2024 when Stephen A. publicly demanded $25 million a year from ESPN. When they offered $18 million, he said no.
But I'm watching, and I've been watching over the last several years, people in this business fall by the wayside because we forget that all of us ultimately answer to people. We don't get to define our own value. We don't get to define our own worth.
And made it a media circus. He went on TV and podcasts comparing himself to NFL players, saying he deserves Patrick Mahomes' money. He made his contract drama as public as possible, so Stephen A. can demand $25 million, and that's fine. But when Molly asks for $2 million, suddenly she's overvaluing herself. The hypocrisy is hypocriting.
But it can all evaporate in a snap if you lose perspective and you forget that everybody, and I mean everybody, answers to somebody.
Stephen A. wants to demand whatever he wants, but when a woman does it, he tears her down. Let's talk history. In 2008-2009, Stephen A. got fired from ESPN because he overvalued himself. He spent nearly a year unemployed before admitting his ego cost him everything. Then in 2013, he left ESPN again after controversies, came back in 2014, but in 2024, he went right back to his old ways, rejecting $18 million and demanding $25 million. And it worked. In 2025, ESPN gave him over $100 million plus $36 million from SiriusXM.
But it can all evaporate in a snap if you lose perspective and you forget that everybody, and I mean everybody, answers to somebody.
This man is making over $20 million a year and criticizing others for trying to get paid. Stephen A. can fail upward and demand outrageous money, but Molly asks for fair pay and gets kicked to the curb. The double standard is disgusting. Emmanuel Acho said, "Not on my watch." On his Speakeasy podcast, he exposed every contradiction. He pointed out that Stephen claimed he wouldn't share details, then shared them on his podcast.
And add on that, I don't know the details. Like, man, what are you doing? What are you doing, man?
Like he said this. He said she abruptly resigned. That's a detail.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to say...
He called out how Stephen monetized his own contract drama, but condemned Molly. Emmanuel reminded everyone that Stephen made money talking about his demands across multiple platforms. So for him to act like Molly was wrong, that's shameless. And the internet went wild applauding Emmanuel for saying what needed to be said. Marcellus wasn't done either. He hinted that Stephen A. and ESPN executives worked against Molly's interests behind the scenes. He suggested Stephen used his executive producer influence to shape contract outcomes that benefited him and hurt her. The hypocrisy.
Start to see the...
I also wonder, bro, like from a human perspective, Molly was your sidekick for 10 years. Mm-hmm. We don't need to know she abruptly resigned. Yeah. Protect her at all costs.
Yeah.
That's my big thing.
And then came the line that really summed up what so many people were feeling.
That's the hard part. Yeah. It's like, at what cost do you get the click, Social Trade?
Yeah,
like,
right, yeah.
Don't get clicks at cost of Molly.
Yeah, no, that's not cool.
Like, not Molly. Get clicks at cost of some stranger you don't know or some viral video.
Right, yeah.
I get it. Yeah. You want to get clicks at the cost of LeBron James? I get it.
Yeah.
But don't get clicks at the cost of a person that's helped you build your empire. That was tough.
Stephen used every bit of leverage to get his $100 million deal. But when Molly used her leverage, suddenly she needed to stay humble. Marcellus framed it as manipulative and self-serving, and he was right. After all the lectures about humility, Stephen A. signs a deal worth over $100 million with ESPN, plus $36 million with SiriusXM.
Recently about how Stephen A. Smith has that pull. Stephen A. Smith even talked about that when he checked Cam Newton recently, talking about, hey, I've hooked a lot of guys up with money around.
He's making over $20 million a year while criticizing someone for asking for $2 million every moral lecture he gave, contradicted by his actions. He wanted to be the humble sage on camera while demanding maximum money, power, and control behind the scenes. And he's still profiting off this drama, making content about Molly's exit. That's not just hypocritical, that's evil. The real tragedy isn't about money, it's about loyalty and betrayal. Molly worked alongside Stephen A. for 10 years. 10 years of showing up, being professional, supporting him, and when she needed someone to have her back, he threw her under the bus. Instead of defending her, he used her situation for content. He threw subliminal shots. He acted like she was replaceable. Stephen A. mirrored the same behavior that ruined his own career in 2008. He let ego destroy a working relationship. This became one of the most hypocritical moments in sports media history. It showed that loyalty means nothing to him if it gets in the way of his ego. Stephen A. Smith's handling of Molly Qerim's exit exposes everything about ego, control, and hypocrisy in this industry.
Is one of the bosses in particular, everyone knows in the industry who that person is, but no need to out him. The point is that person, along with Stephen A. Smith, ain't seeing the talent, not seeing the love for Molly Qerim. And she knew this.
He preaches humility while profiting from controversy. He lectures about knowing your worth while crushing anyone who asks for theirs. Molly's silence speaks volumes. She didn't thank him, didn't acknowledge him, didn't say his name. That tells you everything. Her exit marks the end of an era, but also the beginning of the truth coming out. The receipts are all there. Stephen A.'s contradictions, hypocrisy, manipulation, and ego. Molly deserved better. She deserved respect, fair pay, and loyalty. Instead, she got betrayed. But she's free now with a better deal at Fox, and her dignity intact. Stephen A. might have the power and money, but Molly has the truth. And baby, the truth always comes out. If you found this eye-opening, click the card on your screen for more tea and receipts. Stay woke, stay informed, and never let anyone tell you that asking for what you deserve makes you the problem.